making further identifications. Jet fuel spilled across multiple blocks in one of the largest military housing units in the world, according to Navy officials.
Front yard is completely saturated with fuel. Needs extreme caution during evac.
The jet was heading toward the small Montgomery Gibbs Executive Airport in San Diego just before it crashed. Visibility, according to weather data, was at about half a mile at the time of the accident.
If you look at the path that it took behind me here, you can see that its trajectory came through this direction, took out the front of that house, and it ended up here to the right behind me.
The pilot, checking into air traffic control, was told the weather station wasn't working, but was given weather data from a nearby airport.
That doesn't sound great, but we'll give it a go.
No emergency was reported before the crash. And officials say that really what happened in the middle of the night, I think it was before 4 a.m., that these neighbors really came to the aid of their neighbors to help them get out of these homes like this one, which is the most densely impacted, to get them out. And the smell of jet fuel is still very strong in the air here. And that's a large reason why a lot of these homes are still evacuated, as they will continue to process this and get more information on what happened here in this very densely packed community in San Diego. Aaron?
It's hard to hear those final words from the pilot. All right, thank you very much, Stephanie, and miracle for those on the ground.
Turning now to our national lead, residents of a military neighborhood in San Diego woke up to a horrifying scene of fire and destruction this morning after a private business jet struck power lines just moments before attempting to land. At least 8 were injured. 2 people were killed, including a well-known music booking agent, David Shapiro. CNN's Stephanie Elam is at the crash site in San Diego with new details.
Ran outside and saw just sparks flying up.
A Cessna Citation business jet crashing into a military housing neighborhood roughly 6 miles north of downtown San Diego in the early morning fog.
We got multiple explosions over here. We're doing evacuation. We got multiple houses on fire.
The crash setting at least 10 homes on fire and burning cars throughout the neighborhood. First responders arrived on scene just minutes later, rushing to put out the flames and search the homes.
We're going to probably have several hundred people evacuated.
At least 2 people on the plane died, and authorities say they are still making identifications and investigating how many people were on board.
We're looking at it as a roster on the plane with 6 individuals, so we're confirming that right now with the FAA and NTSB as they're getting on scene right now.
Jet fuel spilled across multiple blocks in one of the largest military housing units in the world, according to Navy officials.
Front yard is completely saturated with fuel. Needs extreme caution during evac.
The jet was heading toward the small Montgomery Gibbs Executive Airport in San Diego just before it crashed. Visibility, according to weather data, was at about half a mile at the time of the accident.
If you look at the path that it took behind me here, you can see that its trajectory came through this direction, took out the front of that house, and it ended up here to the right behind me.
The pilot, checking into air traffic control, radioed in at 3 miles away.
Montgomery traffic citation 666 Delta Sierra, 3 miles, final 28.
The transmission giving no indication of any issue with the landing. No emergency was reported before the crash. And what we know now from the FAA is that there were 6 people on board. We know 2 people have been confirmed dead, but that person that you were talking about, Jake, David Shapiro, the co-founder of the Sound Talent Group, they rep indie music performers as well as hard rock and also some punk bands, according to Billboard magazine, was also the owner of that plane. But as far as who else was on that plane, we still don't know yet. Out here live, they just put these fire trucks in the way. I think they're going about the delicate procedures of collecting the remains of people now and clearing out this area. And the scent here is still very strong of jet fuel in the air. So that's why people are still evacuated, Jake.
All right, Stephanie Elam in San Diego, thank you so much.
All right, so that jet that went down, they're saying it had a bunch of people on there. One of them was from a band called Satan's, something to do with the devil. Now, that's pretty freaky, if you ask me. Coincidence? I don't know. The devil's advocate or some band. So we know now that there was rock bands, people from rock bands, and other people from other bands, punk and rock and roll and stuff like that. So who really was on that jet? What were they doing? And who owns the jet? I mean, was this one of Vince Neil's jets? Like what happened a couple months ago or whatever? Very interesting. But I do want to give a shout out and thank you to that community that came together and helped. It was a military community, helped put out the flames and helped get people to safety and everything. All glory goes to God and them people for that, right?
It's not a fun story to cover. Tough stuff.
You are looking at the aftermath of a private plane crash in a San Diego military community early this morning. The NTSB says the jet struck power lines and then collided with a house about 2 miles from the Montgomery Gibbs Executive Airport where it was planning to land. A number of vehicles caught fire after jet fuel rained down on the residential street. 6 people were on board the Cessna 550. The San Diego Fire Assistant Chief believes no one on the aircraft survived. Among those killed in the crash was music booking agent David Shapiro, according to the Associated Press. A fire official said it was foggy at the time of the crash, and air traffic control recordings show that the weather system was not working at the airport where the plane was attempting to land. Here's part of what the pilot told air traffic control shortly before the crash.
Got the Miramar automated weather for 0955 Zulu. With wind calm, visibility 1/2, and indefinite ceiling 200.
All right, that doesn't sound great, but we'll give it a go.
Joining me now to discuss the CNN aviation correspondent Pete Montine and CNN safety analyst and former FAA safety inspector David Susi.
Which is pretty shocking.
Pete, what more do we know about the leading up to the crash? And just listening to that recording, what does it mean to you?
The recording is really telling here, Anderson, and it says that the pilots used the weather report at nearby Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, and that the weather was very poor, 200-foot cloud ceilings, a half-mile visibility, much too low to make what would be an acceptable landing in what's called instrument conditions, meaning pilots flying in sole reference to the instruments. The pilots used that weather report from Miramar and not Montgomery Gibbs Executive Airport, the point of their intended landing, because we learned this afternoon that that weather system at that airport had been out since Tuesday. But perhaps the biggest finding here is the finding this afternoon from the NTSB that this plane hit power lines before it slammed into that neighborhood. It was that low. We went back and looked at the flight tracking data, and if this plane was on the proper approach path at the point of the crash site, should have been at about 1,300 feet. The last return on the open source flight tracking sites shows the plane at 500 feet. Much too low here, and opens a whole can of worms when it comes to questions in this investigation.
Yeah, way too low. And did they see it though? Right, the weather, the fog, and everything. But when it's that bad, what do? You got to fly by instrumentation, and if you have a faulty instrumentation, you're doomed. It was like the Stevie Ray Vaughan accident, the great Stevie Ray Vaughan. At last minute, they got somebody that was qualified to fly the helicopter, but wasn't qualified to read the instrumentation. And they flew right into a ski mountain, a lift. So, and I think that also happened to a couple other music dudes, where the pilots were trained. They had enough hours, but they weren't trained enough on instrumentation. That's possible. Or they had faulty instrumentation, and that's why they were flying at 500 feet instead of 1,500 foot or 1,300 feet when they're making an approach. So something wasn't right there. And then you don't have any Mayday call, right? We're what's going on radar? Calling with the tower or military base. What's going on? What's our altitude? And something don't seem right. There ain't nothing like that, right? Didn't sound. What did the pilot say? He said, "Well, it don't sound good, but okay, we'll stay on that pattern or whatever." And yeah, then that happens. So horrible. But we really don't know all the people. They're saying right now 6 people on board, but there might be more. And they haven't released everybody was on that plane. So very interesting. All right, well, we'll keep touch on this once we find out more information on it. Let's watch a little bit more of it.
Investigation.
Yeah, David, what stands out to you at this point?
Well, the fact that he was that low and the fact that this aircraft was a 1985 aircraft. Now, typically an aircraft will have ground position warnings that'll tell them how low they are to the ground. So I have a feeling that he really didn't know what altitude he was at the time. And typically you'd get a warning that says you're too low, you're at this many feet, you're at that many feet. But in 1985, that wasn't required on the aircraft. And I don't see that we've got any information that it was upgraded as required in 1992 when aircraft after that level had to have it installed.
So it should have had automatic warning.
Yeah, should have. They'll let you know you're below
Correct.
500 feet.
Yeah,
but
if
you're
it had
gonna
been
stall.
upgraded to that new system, it would have had ground positioning
If you're-
radar, which tells it
if
how
you're
far it is off the
doing
ground.
a
And if you
certain
get too
speed,
close and you're out of that
depending on your
ILS, it'll tell you you're too low, you're too high, wherever it is. It'll tell you where you're at with it. And it doesn't appear to me that he had that with him. But again, that's a backup system. That's after the fact that you're not where you're supposed to be in the first place. So the critical thing that stands out to me is, once again, FAA facility, the ASOS, the weather reporting, the automated weather reporting, was not working at the airport. And in that area, the fog moves so quickly, you really have to.
Well, here's my question: If the weather system wasn't working at the time, he's flying by sight. Plus, he's got his own radar on the in the plane that he can see. He can see certain stuff, right? So, my question is it would have to do with the fog. How thick was the fog? And at 500 feet, he had to. I mean, depending on how thick it was, surely he would have seen lights from this town and said something ain't right. I'm getting, I'm not getting runway lights. I'm getting something else, a neighborhood or something, a highway or something. So yeah, something went wrong. But we'll have to wait and see how many people really were on that plane and what exactly happened. And is it a sign? Someone's saying that there was somebody that was on that plane that was from a rock band or a heavy metal band that had something to do with the devil. Now, is that a coincidence? I don't know. But it's freaky to me. To me, that'd be freaky if this guy from a band called Devil's Advocate or whatever it was, or Prophet. It was like Prada. Oh, Prada to the devil or devil to the Prada, something like that. The band was. Yeah. Never give any power to the devil. I don't want to get away from me, Satan. In Jesus' name, amen. But yeah, that's freaky. Right there is freaky. As soon as I heard that, they were like, music people on the plane. Well, whenever we hear this, we worry about bands we like, right? Motley Crue or one of the great classic rock bands, Aerosmith or whatever. We always pay attention. But when a massive jet crash and music people on it from a band, Devil's Prada or whatever, oh, yikes! What? Yeah. Yeah, kind of freaky to me. And I'm thank Jesus I don't fly. Well, amen. I have flown before, but it was spooky. Way up there in the sky, you look at, oh my God, this thing goes down, it's over. That's why I was trying to talk to the jet companies and the government for breakaway uh, capsules on our passenger jets, where if it's going down, we can at least give them a chance of floating down, whether it be parachute or just its own jet propelled gyro system that lands the capsule. But a lot of people don't listen to what I had said. I'm an idiot. My condolences to the families that were lost in this. And I do uh, uh, say thank you for all these service people that lived in that neighborhood that helped out. Thanks for your service. And your service extends into civilian life. Yeah, I hear it. Their job's never over. It's never over. All right. So we'll be back once we find out who really was in this thing, this crash, what really happened, which it sounds like instrumentation and weather. Uh, and we've seen that before, right? Flying a plane is totally different than driving a car. Uh, if if you ain't going slow enough and close enough to the ground, if you do crash, you got a 50-50 chance then. But if you're way up in the sky and you got a problem, yeah, it's not good. And that's why we need to start building our planes and our jets for safety. You heard it here first. You folks have a great night. God bless. I'll be back with a fire maybe tonight and chilling and relaxing. Once again, all glory goes to God. Amen. Have a good night.